Terence McKenna, who was the scientist who was the originator of time wave theory and novelty theory, and who experimented with DMT and other psychoactive mind-expanding drugs and made contact with the Greys and the ETs and all the rest of them, but then would have to come down off his high and come back to this reality, speculated that in the very near future, via human enhancement, we won't no longer need these psychoactive drugs because we'll alter our brains to put ourselves in contact.
It is very important because now we're facing the time where unconscious evolution period has almost finished, and we come to the new era when new period of controlled human evolution can happen. I think that main efforts of their scientists and main technological progress will be concentrated on their making new body for the human being. So the first step is to make human-like robot, which we call avatar, and to make their perfect control system via brain-computer interface. The second step will be to develop their system of human brain life support and to connect it to the avatar, so disabled people and people who are at the edge of dying can enhance their lifespan. And the third one, finally making the artificial brain to which we can transfer the individual consciousness. And we have one more project which is actually our dream. It is producing hologram-like avatar body.
スーパーコンピューターができて、はい、でその中へ人間が入り込むと、こう希望的観測としてね、あるいはそれが嫌な場合は先ほどの人間の肉体があって、で体はこう死ぬいろいろ故障するじゃないですか、はい、だからもう全部機械にしまうと、で脳だけ残すと、でネットとつながると、でスーパーコンピューターにつながってるから頭賢さはですね、知能は人類の1兆倍、ぐらいあるわけですね、でそういう、まあ、神のようなね人間に
すごい話だな
りたい私はね。
これだからなんかね、こう死ぬ時は死ぬでいいかっていうのはどっかあるんですよ。
それはね仕方がないからですよ。
そうです。
これが、ね、死ななくても済むというオプションがあった時にどっち選びます？
でもね、そこ迷うとこでね自分の体が運命として受け止めて死んでいった方がいいんじゃないかなっていうところありますね。
それはね、いやもう今まであらゆる生物が死ななきゃならないという運命を背負ってるからね、はい、それはもう宿命なわけです、はい、だけどカーツワイルはですよ、未来永劫に生きる方法がある、まあそれは分かりませんよ、でもできたとしましょう、はい、ね、どっち選びますかって。そう言ったら辛いでしょう。
そこまでずっと生きたいですかね。
というかその中でね、まあ肉体はなくなるわけだけど、はい、でも人間って肉体じゃないですよ。やっぱり精神魂意識でしょ、でこれだけが生き続ければ、まあ一種の天国ですよ。そこはね地獄かもしれんけどね。
地獄の可能性の方が高くないですか。
My point of view is that at some distant point in the future, when robots do become gradually more intelligent, instead of fearing them, we should either put a chip in their brain to shut them off if they get murderous, or we should merge with them. Because our descendants may have a choice. A, get older and older every year and die, or B, wake up in an enhanced, genetically enhanced body of silicon and glass and live forever. So if you were faced with that choice, live a decrepit life, aging year after year, or be a Superman, young, handsome, virulent, and immortal, which would you choose?
We humans might decide to upload ourselves into computer memory banks, which will then go out and colonize nearby stars. They will be virtual humans, not humans at the lowest level of reality, which is what we now are, but you might think of a spiritualized aspect of ourselves. This is solid science, but now science and religion have become intertwined. I can use either language, scientific language or religious language, to describe exactly the same thing. Human beings in the far future will be primarily virtual humans. And it is those virtual humans that will get into tiny spaceships and travel to the distant stars, colonize those nearby stars, start the same process again. What will happen is the universe will be slowly but surely converted from its current dead matter state into a living matter state. In the far future, the entire universe will be one gigantic computing machine.
In Genesis 3:7, it states, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." This act of sewing fig leaves to cover themselves is the first instance we see in the Bible of innovation in an attempt to solve a problem, in this case, the fall of humanity. Ever since the fall, mankind has been working diligently to reverse the effects. This is perhaps why we as humanity are inherent seekers of truth, wisdom, and knowledge, and not automatic possessors of it. But it seems our own efforts, while noble, will never fully restore what we have lost. Later in the chapter, in verse 21, God, quote, "made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them." The understanding here is that it will be God who will restore us, not our own efforts. Furthermore, because garments of skin required the killing of an animal, it was the first example of the consequences of the fallen world, that sustenance requires sacrifice. While there are many trivial problems in the world that machines and advances in science have helped solve, especially in the last 2 centuries, there is a much deeper seated problem found in the heart of man. The Bible calls this problem sin, but in fact, this flaw in humanity is recognized by almost every religion in the world, regardless of what they call it. Even the self-proclaimed atheists, or the agnostics, cannot deny this inherent shared problem. Many in the new atheist camp are quick to blame religion as the root of the problem, yet I would imagine that even if religion were completely wiped out, these inherent problems within the heart of man would persist. In Buddhist philosophy, there are 4 noble truths. The first, dukkha, means dislocation or hindrance from our purpose, and the second, tanha, being desires that are unwanted that hinder us from the true goal of attaining nirvana. These 2 noble truths in Buddhism are very similar to the Christian concept of sin. Similarly, all worldviews share the act of rituals, rules, and regulations prescribed as a means to help us eradicate these flaws and to achieve the transcendence of inherent human nature. Modern technology has undoubtedly been the most transformative in all of human history. Many people recognized the transformative potential and power of technology early on in the 19th century when groups like Technocracy Incorporated were formed in an attempt to politicize the technological movement.
Hello, I'm Arvid Peterson, and this is the first of a 2-part presentation on technocracy, an alternative social system. Because of the turmoil throughout the world, and because of the uncertainties about the future of North America, it is not surprising that many Americans are becoming quite concerned. The relentless bombardment of conflicting statements that come from our business and financial leaders, the inane rhetoric pouring from the mouths of politicians, and the fragmented bits of news that come from the media all add up to general confusion throughout the land. Fortunately, however, there is a solution to the many problems facing this country and this continent. And the purpose of these discussions is to talk about those problems and to delineate the kind of solution that is needed. To introduce to you the subject, science applied to social operations. These programs are not intended to entertain or amuse you, nor are they meant to scare you. We are making a new approach. It is not political, financial, philosophical, legal, religious, or moral. It is a technological approach. Technocracy is the scientific answer to America's social problems.
The Zeitgeist movement has pushed the Venus Project, which is essentially a technocratic utopia maintained by machines that will produce goods and services to the needs of humanity. And again, while such a cause is noble, and the film Zeitgeist, Moving Forward, gives its case for why a society built on machine production rather than human labor will solve all the world's problems, it is my firm belief that it will not change the inherent flaws found in the human heart. Abundance does not equal altruism. While technology has given rise to new possibilities, the issue of abusing this power still remains. In fact, the advent of a world government and a world economic system are predicated on the advancement of technology.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that.
We propose that everybody, every American, citizen, legal immigrant gets a non-forgeable employment card, a national employment card. It has a little chip in there that you can't forge that matches the retina of your eye. Now, every employer would have to swipe the card through a little machine like a credit card machine. When someone applied for a job, it would have their picture on it, of course. And if the computer said they're a citizen,
I got it, Senator. I got it. I think I got it.
But here's the other part. If the employer doesn't swipe the card or hires him anyway, first time, a $50,000 fine, second time, jail. It will cut illegal immigrants, and then the Baileys will be willing to accept lots of legal immigrants who we need in this country.
Have you ever gone shopping or loaded up your cart with food or clothing and then get to the checkout line and find out you've left your wallet in the car? Well, tonight we'll show you the technology that makes it simple to just touch and go.
It's sci-fi technology that's about to enter the checkout lane, all in the name of
speed and convenience.
You'll be able to buy anything from bread to beer if you agree to give the store your ultimate identity.
Once you have your groceries scanned, now what do? You punch in your PIN number, touch your index finger to the image reader, and you've paid in about 3 seconds, all with the touch of your fingertip.
It's called biometrics, an automated way to recognize you based on your unique biological characteristics. Each person's fingerprint is a unique identifier, not biologically duplicated anywhere else in the world.
Well, Big Brother will now be taught at a school near you. Across the country, schools are finding ways to track and monitor students inside and outside the classroom. The techniques range from chips embedded in school ID cards to GPS systems installed in computers tracking students' every move to actual surveillance cameras. And it's happening in Texas. These are the IDs students are required to carry that have tracking trips built right into them, so teachers know where their students are at all times. Well, schools say the measures will help make kids safer, but is it just going too far?
If this takes off, they're expecting within like a couple of years to have it advance in Texas and impact around 100,000 students in 122 different schools. And of course, like I said, it's going to be a slippery slope. If we see it working here, it's going to work somewhere else.
Your ID card. Well, what happens next?
It's a very good question.
Somewhere else.
There was actually, I saw someone saying online that it just prepares students for the real world, where they enter adulthood and they are constantly monitored.
It's not the real world I went to school in.
Yeah, times are changing, Liz.
Times are changing, that much is true.
Mismatch between humans and electronics, right? So electronics are boxy and rigid, humans are curvy and soft. That's a mechanical mismatch problem. Well, a researcher at the University of Illinois, his name is Dr. Rogers, what he discovered is that he could use standard CMOS techniques to make islands of high-performance silicon connected by accordion-like structures that would allow it to stretch up to 200% and still be performing. And what he did is he founded a company and they started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication. Now, it may be true that 10 to 20-year-olds don't want to wear a watch on their wrist, but you can be sure that they'll be far more interested in wearing an electronic tattoo, if only to piss off their parents. Okay?
And that can have a design, right? Because they would certainly want some kind of cool design.
Options. And that's something that you wear, but you could also imagine including authentication in just your daily habits. So I take a vitamin every morning. What if I could take vitamin authentication?
What?
vitamin authentication. Look, I have one right here. Well, here, I'll let you hold it. Would you like to hold it?
I'll hold it.
Okay. So, this...
You guys see it?
This pill has a small chip inside of it with a switch. It also has what amounts to an inside-out potato battery. When you swallow it, the acids in your stomach serve as the electrolyte, and they power it up, and the switch goes on and off. And it creates an 18-bit ECG-like signal in your body, and essentially your entire body becomes your authentication token. Yes, this is true. Okay?
Okay, but...
Okay, so wait. So it's really true. So what this means is that becomes my first superpower. I really want this superpower. It means that my arms are like wires, my hands are like alligator clips. When I touch my phone, my computer, my door, my car, I'm authenticated in. First superpower. Like, I want that.
So we're not shipping that right away?
Yeah, no. We're not shipping that right away. But it sounds like...
This is FDA cleared?
So here's the thing. This is not science fiction. This pill was actually made by a company called Proteus, and they've developed it for medical applications. That pill has been CE stamped and cleared by the FDA. You can take 30 of those per day for the rest of your life.
It's a new technology that is unlocking the Pulse password. Your heartbeat reveals a lot about you, and not just about your health.
There's actually unique characteristics that relate to the size of the heart, the position of the heart, and the physiology surrounding the heart.
It's as unique as your fingerprint, and now it's being used to replace passwords, key cards, bank cards, even credit cards.
It's like your personal PIN number is your heartbeat.
Imagine opening a door without a key, having your tech gadgets like smartphone or tablet unlock the second you walk into a room, or making a purchase at a store without using a credit card. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but technology expert Lance Ulanoff says it's the way of our very near future.
It's going to be a way for us to interact with the world around us without having to constantly identify ourselves.
Canadian company Bionym developed this little wristband to recognize the pattern of your pulse. The wristband then transmits that information so you can perform transactions like withdrawing money without a bank card, even opening a car door without a key.
You don't have to remember anything, you don't have to do anything special.
And it's not the only concept. Motorola is developing a temporary tattoo that contains a computer chip and antenna. Also in the works, a pill that when dissolved by stomach acid turns the whole body into a kind of transmitter.
You know, the whole move of these implants, there are a couple of stupid companies like the Verichip Corporation, with all its various names, that come out and say, oh, well, we want to sell this as a product. I don't think it's going to happen that way. People don't want an ID microchip. But if you turn around and instead say, you'll be able to listen to music and access Facebook and you know, get your email through this little implant, you're going to have a stampede of people wanting to do it.
Neil Postman, in his book entitled Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Disclosure in the Age of Show Business, stated, quote, "What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the Feelies, the Orgy-Porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny failed to take into account man's most infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Huxley added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. This book is about the possibility that Huxley, not Orwell, was right. Beyond the controlling aspects of technology in a tyrannical political or social system, there are some who tout that technology itself is more akin to a new life form. Kevin Kelly, the man who helped launch Wired magazine, who was the chief editor of its first 7 years, stated in his book, What Technology Wants, quote, In biological evolution, there is no designer, but in the technium, there is an intelligent designer, sapiens. In the words of psychologist Sherry Turkle, technology is our second self. It is both other and us. Unlike our biological children, who grow up to have minds completely separate from us, the technium's autonomy includes us and our collective minds. We are part of its selfish nature. The ongoing dilemma of technology, then, will never leave us. It is an ever-elaborate tool that we wield and continually update to improve our world, and it is an ever-ripening superorganism, of which we are but a part, that is following a direction beyond our own making. Humans are both master and slave to the technium. Calling technology a superorganism may seem ridiculous at first, but not only is there ample evidence that we ourselves are the nurturers of this organism, there is clear prophetic biblical understanding to the development as well.
This is a very widespread belief in our society. It's the kind of belief system of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It's a belief system which has now been spread to the entire world. But there's a conflict in the heart of science between science as a method of inquiry based on reason, evidence, hypothesis, and collective investigation, and science as a belief system or a worldview. And unfortunately, the worldview aspect of science has come to inhibit and constrict the free inquiry, which is the very lifeblood of the scientific endeavor. Since the late 19th century, science has been conducted under the aspect of a belief system or worldview, which is essentially that of materialism, philosophical materialism. And these sciences are now wholly owned subsidiaries of the materialist worldview. I think that as we break out of it, the sciences will be regenerated.
Philip Ashley Fanning, in his book entitled Isaac Newton and the Transmutation of Alchemy, an alternate view of the scientific revolution, stated, quote, "In alchemy, human beings had a method of seeking ultimate truth, and it seems to have worked, at least for a fortunate few. The ancient science enabled its practitioners to probe the deep structures of reality and participate in an ongoing creation of the physical world." Later, Fanning goes on to comment on the philosopher's stone, quote, "The so-called medicine of the metals, the stone, was thought able to cure supposed diseases of base metals such as lead and tin, thereby enabling them to the perfect metals, silver and gold. Similarly, it was seen as the elixir of life, able to heal man's ills and postpone death. Most important, the stone can help a person merge with the divine spirit that pervaded the universe, in the process becoming godlike himself, a magus. Alchemists viewed the philosopher's stone as the key to all knowledge." Dr. Fred Alan Wolfe, in his book entitled Mind into Matter, A New Alchemy of Science and Spirit, said, quote, "Most modern dictionaries popularly dismiss alchemy as an immature, empirical, and speculative precursor of chemistry, having had as its object of transmutation of base metals into gold. But although chemistry did evolve from alchemy, the two schools of thought never really had much in common. Whereas chemistry deals with scientifically verifiable and objective phenomena, the mysterious doctrine of alchemy pertains to a hidden, subjective, abstract, and higher order of reality. Perceiving and realizing this reality is and was the goal of the alchemist. They call this goal the magnum opus, or great work, absolute realization." Dr. Wolfe goes on to describe his position on modern-day scientific practice, stating, quote, "As smart as we are in the modern world, we apparently can never pass behind the veil which divides the seen from the unseen, except by engaging ourselves in the way appointed by the ancients, the mysteries." Physicist Wolfgang Pauli once put it that scientists went too far in the 17th century when they attempted to make everything understandable strictly as objective science. By denuding the subjective view from any firm ground, much was lost. Modern science has attempted to make the study of the subjective a mere reflection of the objective and reducible science of matter. Some of us, including many scientists, don't agree with the new objective materialism. We believe in our heart of hearts, as did the alchemists that came before us, that something far richer than materialism is responsible for the universe.
So when you're talking about the word supernatural, a simple dictionary definition is something like not of the natural world. A synonym would be something like preternatural. And this broadly covers a span of everything from belief in God or various deities to things like magic, the paranormal, and the occult. Now, the term supernatural really originates from a 16th century medieval Latin supernaturalis, which supra is just a Latin for above, plus naturalis, which means nature. So you're basically, above nature. So most folks are thinking of something that violates, like known scientific laws like gravity, something that we call a miracle. Now, miracles are described in the Bible, and they seem to fit into two broad categories. Now, the first category would include, events that are occurring with supernatural timing or supernatural placement or both, but in and of themselves, they're a natural event, but the timing or how it occurs is above nature because God does it, or a supernatural agent like an angel would do it. Now, the second type of miracle encompasses a supernatural event where the phenomenon itself would defy physical laws of the universe. Like in 2 Kings chapter 6, Elisha makes an iron axe head float to the surface of the water. So this clearly violates physical laws. Something like when Jesus walked on water, that would clearly violate known physical laws. So we have these two kind of categories of miracles. But, when we're talking about something being above nature, it does beg the question of what is nature? And this is where you get into quite a bit of controversy in philosophical circles. And this really comes into what we call metaphysics in philosophy. It's kind of the branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of reality. And you really can't talk about supernatural without having a metaphysical theory of reality. Now, what this really means is meta is a prefix meaning beyond or after or something like that. So you have beyond physics. So it's actually very congruent with the concept of supernatural because we're talking about what is beyond physics. So sort of questions that philosophers look at in metaphysics are things like, does God exist? But other things like, do numbers and mathematical objects exist independently of the human mind? Or this was another one that's even more interesting. Does anything exist apart from the human mind? And there's actually some pretty rigorous philosophical arguments for what is called idealism, which basically says that everything is ultimately mental and that matter doesn't exist. But the dominant, metaphysical worldview that's taught in our universities and, in science is reductive materialism or naturalism. And this is the idea that all of reality is explained simply by matter and energy and acting according to the laws of chemistry and physics. However, they don't really have any evidence to make such a broad claim like that. And, I think that naturalism or reductive materialism itself is actually a mythology, mainly perpetrated by secularists and atheists to support their worldview. Now, they have what they call a program of demythologizing religious claims and supernatural claims. They believe that there are no true supernatural spiritual realities, only natural phenomena. And so they assume there must be a natural explanation behind every religious belief or supernatural claim. Thus, they assert things like scientifically ignorant people create myths and religious symbols for natural phenomena that they don't understand. For instance, like a culture that doesn't understand thunder. So it interprets thunder to represent a deity in order to make sense of it somehow. So the goal of the naturalist or the reductive materialist is then to discover, the natural causes of these things and then drove this culture to create this mythology. And they demythologize it by explaining it away. Now that's happened in our culture to some degree. So they have some points in that. And we have discovered a lot of natural causes for things that we used to think were supernatural. But the art of demythologizing is really itself a mythology because, it just asserts a bald-faced assertion that there are no supernatural or transcendent kind of mysteries to life, and then it interprets everything that it cannot understand in terms of naturalism or reductive materialism. For instance, there's quite a few things that they don't have answers for, like the Big Bang cosmology. They've pretty much proven by their own scientific methods that the whole universe came into being at a point in time from nothing. Because nature came into being at that time, whatever caused that, whatever made that process ensue, is by definition supernatural, because it caused nature to come into being. So we really do have evidence for the supernatural in the Big Bang cosmology, just because whatever made it bang is by definition above natural. So they really have undermined themselves by their process of investigation. And there's other things like the origin of life. They really don't have any good natural explanations for how life got started. So, we see prominent scientists, looking at extraterrestrial explanations for that. Naturalism, reductive materialism, which is our dominant university-taught worldview, is in deep trouble. It's actually dying. And what we are beginning to see now, though, is not so much a revival of Christian supernaturalism. It's more, we're starting to see a rise of kind of a pantheistic monism, a kind of a spiritualism that's beginning to get a lot of traction in the culture. So I'm predicting that we're going to see quite a rise in the supernatural worldview. It's going to be something that's a little more in the occult paranormal realm. But I think that materialism is actually dying, and it probably doesn't have another generation left before it's completely disproven.
There are several more books that seem to be igniting a metaphysical or spiritual component into the scientific worldview, including Lee Bladon's The Science of Spirituality, integrating science, psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and religion. The Dalai Lama's The Universe in a Single Atom, The Convergence of Science and Spirituality. Dr. Massimo Citro's The Basic Code of the Universe, The Science of the Invisible in Physics, Medicine, and Spirituality. And Dr. Charles Taft's 2009 book, The End of Materialism, How Evidence of the Paranormal is Bringing Science and Spirit Together. When commenting on the book, The End of Materialism, author and doctor Larry Dossey said, quote, "Amid the flurry in science about genes, neurons, and neurotransmitters, another quiet revolution has been building for several decades. It involves a view of consciousness in which the mind is not confined to specific points in space or time, such as the brain, body, and the present. Tart's inspiring majestic image of consciousness will prevail because of two compelling reasons. It is built on good science, and it more fully accounts for who we humans are and how we behave."
Let me say very clearly, there is no globalism without the spiritual presence behind it. There is no synchronizing and crystallizing the political, the economic, the military, the environmental, the sciences and technologies without that spiritual presence behind. So if we do not look at the entities behind, yes, they are non-human entities, intelligences, as the Nazis called them. They are alien in the sense that they're not of our physical world, but they're not extraterrestrial. They are extra-dimensional. These are beings that have been around for millennia. They are fallen ones, fallen angels. You can say demons, daemonoia, Satanas, Diablos, ancient serpent, and by the Spirit of God, there's designations given to those entities. Now, those entities, as we've said again and again and again, the Scriptures bear out the Greek word metaskizmatai, the ability to morph, and the ability to present a front that is acceptable without changing its nature or agenda. Now that's part of the global deception. That's part of the end-time deception issue. And as Scripture, the Spirit of God has shown us, the broadest, deepest, most controlled, but yet most supernatural deception will be occurring in the last days, a ramping up an evolutionary development to the point of bulging at the seams. The same beings that Himmler was after, the same beings that guided Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey in the writings, the same beings that would predict their goal of the transformation, evolution, and alteration of humanity, and bringing about a new era and a world super leader as defined in the externalization of the hierarchy, is reappearing in what looks like an extraordinary, dazzling, incredible combination of science and spirituality.
Let me begin by stating here that I am not against the advancement of technology. I believe that much of the work is done with good intentions for the well-being of mankind. However, as the old adage goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There are in general 4 areas of advancing technologies. These are called GRIN technologies. They stand for genetic, robotic, intelligence, and nanotechnology. Early in the 20th century, we saw the development of what was called eugenics. Eugenics was a social philosophy with the belief that humans could improve their genetic quality by selective control of human breeding and sterilization. The history of eugenics in America has largely been forgotten. For example, eugenics was widely accepted in the US academic community in the early 1900s with financial support from corporations like the Carnegie Institution and the Rockefeller Foundation. Many US states also had laws that allowed eugenics-based sterilization and euthanasia. While today, eugenics is largely remembered as Nazi propaganda, the reality is that it was a major part of American culture. But many believe that the concept of eugenics has gone away and no longer exists, but they are wrong. Eugenics simply goes by another name today.
Bill Gates, who of course runs the biggest charitable philanthropic foundation, which is tax-free, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I just want to point out leading into it, they are explicitly in lockstep with the Rockefeller Foundation and completely continuing what has been a century-long saga of eugenics, social engineering, collectivism, and destruction of all independence. They're pushing GMOs in all sectors of the world. You know what's going on domestically. Hopefully you've heard about how they're pushing it into African communities in India, in Latin America. They're destroying local agriculture while forcing people to take food aid or grow GMOs that are destructive to their health. According to all the studies, they're ignoring all the warning signs and putting more and more money behind it while literally paying propaganda to portray them as our saviors and those who are saving us not only money but lives. Bill Gates pays media to portray him as a saint. And you notice how every article always mentions that he's saving lives, how he's doing something great for the world by pushing vaccines and calling to curb population. His famous TED speech, he talked about lowering the world's population by at least 15% with vaccinations as a key vector for that. And I exposed how NPR, ABC, the London Guardian, BBC, the Alliance for Green Revolution, Gavi, Monsanto, Cargill, all these industries, all these media outlets, all these corporate entities are locked together with the Bill Gates and Rockefeller Foundation to deceive the world, to force dangerous vaccinations and food upon us, and to consolidate, frankly, a staggering, disturbing amount of money. One final note I'll add is that the whole rise of foundations was in response to the outrage over monopolies at the turn of the 20th century. The Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Harrimans amassed more money than anyone ever had. They monopolized the rail, the oil, and the steel industries. They developed and used antitrust laws to try to strike them down, but they went underground, they went sophisticated, and it was revealed, at least at the time, that Nelson Rockefeller was being appointed as vice president, the extent to which they had used hundreds, maybe thousands of tax-free entities to put their money offshore, out of reach, while pushing the most un-American, most disturbing, most anti-human programs under the sun. They investigated it in Congress in 1953, and Charlotte Iserby will tell you they tried to even destroy the records of those hearings, though they were non-binding. Iserby was able to save those documents. That's why we know so much today. I just want to give that as a backdrop to the level of deception and why it's important that we confront people like Bill Gates.
One of the first things I did when I started researching Bill Gates, one of the first things I found out was that through his foundation and through the Gavi Alliance, they've been doing all these tests in developing nations that are hurting people, they're killing people, and he's putting millions and millions of dollars into this. And I even have a quote here that I'm going to read later, but people are wondering, why is it that he's spending so much money on these vaccines? Millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on these vaccines that are literally killing children.
People in these third world countries are calling it genocide. They're literally running, in some cases, from these shots. In some cases, they're killing the people who are sending the vaccines.
Nigeria and all these countries, they're actually killing them. They're saying they've said on record they think they're coming there to kill their children.
And Bill Gates cares so much about these vaccines, he won't even save the lives of the workers who are dispensing the vaccines by withdrawing those programs. He just wants to continue them no matter what.
Yeah, he's just going to keep it going. He doesn't care. And it just keeps happening. If I went into your house and I permanently brain damaged your child and paralyzed him forever, I would go to prison, and rightfully so. This man can hide behind his cutesy organizations and initiatives with all of his billions of dollars and paralyze tens of thousands of children, and it's fine, nothing happens. It makes no sense. This is just a few things I wanted to mention to our audience. He's got a thing called Great Challenges, and he gives out money to different professors and scientists all across the country for different sets of initiatives that he wants them to fulfill. And here's just a few of the things that I found in looking that he's funding right now. Vaccinating fetuses, vaccines through rice, genetically engineered rice that has a vaccine in it.
Edible vaccines.
Nanoparticles, skin patches, mosquitoes. There's actually a clip we have, we don't have time, but mosquitoes, he will release those on people without their knowledge, so that's wonderful. Genetically engineered stomach bacteria, that's a vaccine platform for diarrhea vaccines. Contraceptive vaccines that sterilize rats. I mean, it
goes on and on.
In 1998, Dr. Gregory Pence, professor of philosophy and arts and humanities at the University of Alabama, stated, quote, "Many people love their retrievers and their sunny dispositions around children and adults. Could people be chosen in the same way? Would it be so terrible to allow parents to at least aim for a certain type in the same way that great breeders try to match a breed of dog to the needs of a family?" Bioethicist Arthur Kaplan from the University of Pennsylvania, in an interview with ABC News back in 2000, stated, quote, "Making babies sexually will become rare. Many parents will leap at the chance to make their children smarter, fitter, and prettier. Ethical concerns will be overtaken by the realization that technology simply makes for better children. In a competitive market society, people are going to want to give their kids an edge. They'll slowly get used to the idea that a genetic edge is not greatly different from an environmental edge." Francis Fukuyama of the Institute for Public Policy at George Mason University, and author of The End of History, stated, quote, "Biotechnology will be able to accomplish what the radical ideologies of the past with their unbelievably crude technologies were unable to accomplish, to bring about a new type of human being. Within the next couple generations, we will have definitively finished human history because we will have abolished human beings as such, and then a new post-human history will begin." And finally, Joel Garria, in his book Radical Evolution, The Promise and Peril of Enhancing Our Minds, Our Bodies, and What It Means to Be Human, stated, quote, "The ability to tinker with our genes offers the astounding promise and peril of immortality, which mythically has been the defining difference between gods and mortals. It also offers the possibility of an even greater variety of breeds of human than there is of dogs." The list of organizations and groups working tirelessly for the advancement in various areas of technologies and the conscious evolution of humanity is vast. Alcor Life Extension Foundation, based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, is a nonprofit company advocating and performing cryonics, the preservation of humans in liquid nitrogen after legal death, with the hopes of restoring them in full health in the future when the technology is developed. As of March 31st, 2013, Alcor has 985 members and 117 in cryopreservation.
The concept of no longer existing terrifies me. I don't want to just go to sleep and not wake up. I want to actually have a good chance at reanimation and just continuing my existence. I'm an atheist, so I don't believe that there's existence beyond what we have within the laws of science. And so far, cryonics is the only atheist alternative.
How old are you?
I'm 16.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to be 17 next month. I am Alcor member 2561 Neuro.
So are you just going to be frozen for your head?
Yes, that. The benefit of that is, aside from it being cheaper, the procedure for a head only is more pristine and careful than a procedure for a whole body. I mean, I'm signed up for the neuro because I value my brain and I want it to be treated with as much care as possible. And if my body would just be a nuisance, especially if my body is, I mean, really there's no point in me having my body if it can just be replaced.
About all the suffering and pain?
Well, when they have the technology to repair a necrotic person, they'll have the technology to make life infinitely pleasurable.
I mean, what happens if you're wrong and you spend all this money or you went to all this trouble to preserve yourself and then you just...
What happens if I'm right and I don't? I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't. When and if the technology is available, and if I just decide not to do it just because there was a chance of the technology not being available, I wouldn't be able to live with myself after the technology does become available, and the rest of my long extended existence would be miserable. So I just take the chance of it not working and try and advocate it as if it was guaranteed to work. I see it as the only science-based religion that exists. I mean, a religion is, to me, the role of a religion is post-mortem closure. So people have their gods like Ganesha and Allah and Jesus. I have Alcor.
In order to conduct this research under constitutional integrity, the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act was passed in all 50 states. The American Cryonics Society is yet another nonprofit organization advocating cryonics at the research and educational level. As of October 1st, 2012, the Cryonics Institute, located in Clinton Township, Michigan, has 1,040 members, 505 of whom had funding and contracts in place to be cryo-preserved upon legal death. Cryonics Asia has its nonprofit operations working out of Hong Kong, while the for-profit branch is maintained and administered in Tel Aviv, Israel. The reason for the for-profit model, they say, is to create momentum on the global market for providing the options for those near death to invest their potential immortality through cryonics. This is something that currently wouldn't be tolerated on ethical grounds in the West, hence its operations in the East. The National Nanotechnology Initiative launched in 2000 with 8 agencies dedicated to push for nanotechnology innovation worldwide. The group consists of the individual and cooperative nanotechnology-related activities of 27 federal agencies, each with different roles. The NNI, along with the National Science of Technology Council, informs and influences the federal budget and planning for the United States. The National Center for Nanoscience and Technology Group in China are the leading developers in researching and developing products and services with the use of nanotechnology to be deployed worldwide. The Human Brain Project is an ambitious group pursuing the development of information and communication technologies in neuroinformatics, brain simulation, high-performance computing, medical informatics, neuromorphic computing, and neurorobotics. Another group, the Brain Activity Map Project, also known as the Brain Project, is an American initiative aimed to decode the tens and thousands of connections between the neurons of the human brain. It is funded by the National Institute of Health, DARPA, the National Science Foundation, and other private foundations. They are reported to receive $100 million in funding for 2014.
Computer chips, GPS technology, the internet. All these things grew out of government investments in basic research, and sometimes, in fact, some of the best products and services spin off completely from unintended research that nobody expected to have certain applications. Businesses then use that technology to create countless new jobs. So the founders of Google got their early support from the National Science Foundation. The Apollo project that put a man on the moon also gave us, eventually, cat skins. And every dollar we spend to map the human genome has returned $140 to our economy. $1 of investment, $140 in return. So Dr. Collins helped lead that genome effort, and that's why we thought it was appropriate to have him here to announce the next great American project, and that's what we're calling the Brain Initiative. You know, as humans, we can identify galaxies light years away. We can study particles smaller than an atom, but we still haven't unlocked the mystery of the 3 pounds of matter that sits between our ears. Today, scientists possess the capability to study individual neurons and figure out the main functions of certain areas of the brain. But a human brain contains almost 100 billion neurons, making trillions of connections. So Dr. Collins says it's like listening to the string section and trying to figure out what the whole orchestra sounds like. So as a result, we're still unable to cure diseases like Alzheimer's or autism, or fully reverse the effects of a stroke. And the most powerful computer in the world isn't nearly as intuitive as the one we're born with. So there's this enormous mystery waiting to be unlocked. And the Brain Initiative will change that by giving scientists the tools they need to get a dynamic picture of the brain in action and better understand how we think and how we learn and how we remember. And that knowledge will be transformative.
There are other private companies working to develop brain-inspired technologies. IBM had recently made progress in successfully simulating nearly 5% of the human brain through what's called the Blue Gene computer. Another breakthrough by IBM was a pair of cognitive chips built on the nanoscale to simulate brain memory functions.
Trying to bring together neuroscience, supercomputing, and nanotechnology to create a radically different computer architecture that mimics the function, low power, small size, and real time of the human brain. Modern computers, because of their sequential, symbolic nature, can be likened to the left brain, whereas the human brain is capable of parallel, short, complex thinking, and it can be likened to the right brain. While on one hand, our competitors are chasing the tail end of the left brain computers, IBM is opening up entirely new way of computing, thinking, and serving our customers, thereby giving rise to a continuum of architectures between the left brain von Neumann machines and the right brain cognitive computers. We have created breakthrough chips at the scale of a worm brain, and now we are on the path to create a new True North chip at the scale of B-brain.
Horizon 2020 is the biggest EU research and innovative program ever, with over $100 billion in funding available over 7 years from 2014 to 2020. The program aims to fund the development of various technologies such as 3D printing, medical robotics, and nanotechnology, and has specifically applied over $2 billion towards the Human Brain Project to not only map the brain, but to also create the platform for future developments such as neural implants and mind uploading devices. The EU Enhance project has also, in conjunction with the Europe 2045 initiative, has begun development of what is called the Augmented Learning Environment, which entails an educational platform that incorporates current online multiplayer RPGs with social role-playing games to facilitate a digital educational environment for students. Aldebaran Robotics in Paris, France, says that according to the United Nations, robotics will be the technological revolution of the 21st century. Thus, this group is working with the current platforms of interactive technologies to provide the first commercialized autonomous humanoid robots.
Meet Valkyrie, Valkyrie 1, 6'2", 125 kilograms, superhero robot. We want to get to Mars. Likely NASA will send robots ahead of the astronauts to the planet. These robots will start preparing the way for the human explorers. And when the humans arrive, the robots and the humans will work together in conjunction, building HABs, laying foundation, and just working together in that tight relationship. So technologies such as Valkyrie are going to really lead into the type of robotic systems that will one day be the precursor missions before the astronauts go to Mars.
Foresight International is another global university-based network of professors, students, teachers, and citizens who are concerned with the future of mankind. Through the combination of the arts and sciences, they are developing a platform for academic research to help develop public policy at the local, national, and international levels in an attempt to strategically resolve current and future global issues. Foresight Institute, based out of Palo Alto, California, is a public think tank focused on transformative future technologies. Its goal, since 1986, has been to discover and promote the upside and help avoid the dangers of nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, biotech, and similar life-changing developments. They are advocates to increase the speed at which these technologies are developed, while making sure to provide a means to reduce the misuse and potential dangers of them. The Machine Intelligence Research Institute, founded in the year 2000, advocates ideas initially put forward by I.J. Good and Werner Vinge regarding the intelligence explosion, or more commonly known as the singularity. Head of engineering at Google, Ray Kurzweil, served as one of its directors from 2007 to 2010 and maintains an advisory board which includes Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom, biomedical gerontologist Aubrey de Grey, PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, and Foresight Nanotech Institute co-founder Christine Peterson. While looking up all these groups, one of the major topics to hit the news stream was the fact that Google purchased Boston Dynamics, a military robotics maker. What was not reported were the other 7 robotics companies that Google purchased along the way. With Ray Kurzweil taking the reins for Google's engineering department, it's quite alarming to see his predictions for the near future, which includes the capacity to reprogram our biology to be free from disease and aging, printing most of our products including clothes and even replacement organs via 3D printing, search engines becoming ever more responsive and intelligent, and the idea that humans will be fully immersed in visual, auditory, virtual environments for social interaction and gameplay. Furthermore, in December 2013, it was reported by the Harvard School of Engineering and Applied Sciences that they had developed machine learning algorithms that could make chemical reactions intelligent. This brings us to another project started in 2000 by Hod Lipson of Cornell University and Jordan Pollack of Brandeis University, called the Golem Project. With the support of DARPA, the Golem Project, whose acronym stood for Genetically Organized Lifelike Electromechanics, conducted experiments in an attempt to develop self-replicating and self-manufacturing robotic lifeforms. While artificial organisms had been developed digitally to evolve in response to the programmed conditions, the goal for the Golem Project was to get these organisms from the digital realm to the physical. While such projects are available to the public mainstream, one can only speculate as to what may be going on behind closed doors in the laboratories of the deep underground.